it is time to begin. This is the First United Methodist Church in Humboldt, Tennessee, and we are here for Sunday school. Now, my name is Ben Barnett, and I'll be your teacher this morning. Now, this is a rotating assignment. I'm not here every Sunday, which you could probably decide will be a glorious thing. But anyhow, it does rotate from Sunday to Sunday. Now, I was born and raised in Humboldt and in this church. My wife Nell and I raised two daughters in this church. My work took me to St. Louis in 1992, and we were there for over 20 years. And we returned in 2013. Time passes, and here we are. I think it's important to mention that because we are recording these Sunday school lessons, and they will be posted on the internet later in the week. And it's just possible that somebody's going to stumble across them and wonder who we are and who I am and what we're doing. So thank you again for being here, and welcome again to Sunday school. Now, what is Sunday school? Well, the answer really depends, I think, on who you ask. Historically, it was literally school. School for children at a time when child labor was the norm, and education for the masses was really mostly not available. Started in England in the 18th century and quickly moved to America. The English Bible was the primary text. And over time, it became the tool for adult education as well. Now, I would quickly add that all Christian churches do not have Sunday school. Now, I have been involved in Sunday school all my life, either as a student or as a teacher. Now, most noticeably that the Sunday school class leader is most often referred to as teacher. Now, for me, that's a key description. Sunday school is not supposed to be simply another sermon, although we might need one preacher, but it's not supposed to be another sermon. Therefore, in my view again, Sunday school is by definition a place of learning and the exchange of information. And that means that I have a real problem with the circumstances here today. Never in my 78 years have I tried to teach so few dispersed over so big a distance, all wearing masks of different colors. Well, with that rambling background, let's look at the literature for today. Now, the name of the booklet that we're working out of is called the Bible Expositor and Illuminator. It is published by the Union Gospel Press, a division of the Gospel Workers Society. And they've been around for around 100 years and are located in Cleveland, Ohio. Their founder was a Mennonite preacher named W.B. Musselman, and their stated objective is to publish fundamentally sound doctrine. And now, from their website, I understand that this means a very conservative theology based on literal interpretation of the scriptures, coupled with a stated belief that the United States has been especially chosen and blessed by God. Now, the lesson plans for the fall quarter of 2020 are from the book of Exodus. Exodus is the second book behind Genesis in the Old Testament. The selection for our consideration today is Exodus 17, 8 through 16. I'm going to read those verses from the New Revised Standard Version of the Bible. Then Amalek came and fought with Israel at Rephidim. And Moses said to Joshua, "Choose some men for us and go out and fight with Amalek. And tomorrow I will stand at the top of the hill with the staff of God in my hand." And so Joshua did as Moses told him and fought with Amalek, while Moses, Aaron, and Hur went up to the top of the hill. Whenever Moses held up his hand, Israel prevailed. Whenever he lowered his hand, Amalek prevailed. But Moses' hands grew weary. So they took a stone and put it under him, and he sat on it. And Aaron and Hur held up his hands, one on one side and the other on the other side. So his hands were steady until the sun set. And Joshua defeated Amalek and his people with the sword. And then the Lord said to Moses, write this as a reminder in a book and recite it in the hearings of Joshua. And I will utterly block out the remembrance of Amalek from under heaven. And Moses built an altar and called it, the Lord is my banner. And he said, a hand upon the banner of the Lord. The Lord will have war with Amalek from generation unto generation. Now, books can be read in many different ways. Books are like music. You can listen to music idly while doing something else. I got to tell you, I can't do that. It distracts me, but my daughters can. My wife can. We can also listen to music technically. I can't, again, but some people can. Walter probably can. Or sentimentally, or perhaps even religiously. And in great books, the riches remain inexhaustible and ready for another reading. Such books grow in meaning with the growth of one's own powers of perception. For me, one such book is To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. I first read it when I was in college in 1963, and I have read it many times since then. If you haven't read it, or haven't read it lately, I strongly suggest that you do. Now, this has nothing to do with the lesson, but it just occurred to me as I was preparing, and I thought perhaps I should mention it. Now, back to Exodus. Exodus is one of the most complicated books in the Bible, particularly when you try to distinguish between the different versions of the stories contained in the book and the corrections and amplifications of old material by later hands. And when you read Exodus, you're really listening to many voices of the people in different places and times, retelling, correcting, misunderstandings, insertions, all of this which would give historical precedent for their doctrines that they thought ought to be in there and that they truly believed. From my reflection and my readings, I will say that Exodus is not a history of early Israel in a really strict literal sense. Rather, it is an interpretation of Israel's faith development that occurred over many centuries. The book deals seriously with the fact that this faith, the faith of Israel, is founded on a historic revelation. Now, the story of the Amalekite attack on Israel typifies the military crises that Israel encountered as it wandered around looking for the promised land. Now, as we get ahead in the story, you will discover when they get to the promised land, the fighting's not over. But the story presented in these verses is that God will bless the army of Israel and that Moses will assure that help by a visible sign. The hands of Moses and the staff had already become a great symbol to these people. Through them, the power of God had been made manifest. Moses had stretched them out, and through the plagues, the people had been freed from slavery. The sea had been divided, and they had been delivered from dying thirst and hunger. But you also need to remember that the staff was just really a big stick with great symbolic power. Now, Moses chooses a military leader, Joshua, and tells him to select his army and lead it into battle with Amalek. And then Moses said, while you're down in the valley, I'm going to be up on the hill with my brother and a friend watching. Now, you can imagine at this point, Joshua kind of looks at Moses and said, now, wait a minute. I'm going to be down in the valley fighting for my life, and you're going to be on the hill watching? But then Moses responds, I will stand at the top of the hill with the staff of God in my hand. Now, side note, Aaron is a major player in the history of Israel, but the friend, Hur, is never mentioned again. The rest of the story is simply told. Moses lifted his arms holding the staff, and his army prevailed. Time passes. Oh, Moses gets tired. He's been holding his hands up for hours. So he puts them down. And Joshua begins to lose the battle. So Aaron and Hur step up to help Moses. What do? They find a big rock for him to sit down. They stand beside him and hold up his arms. And the battle wages on. Now, at this point, you might ponder this question. Does God need help to perform his miracles? At the end of the day, Joshua wins the battle. And the King James Version says he discomfited Amalek with the edge of the sword. Some more modern translations say he just mowed them down. The Lord then tells Moses to write all this in a book so the nation of Israel can remember to hate and to make war with the Amalek people for generations. And the story closes with Moses building an altar to memorialize the words of hate. That's the end of the lesson. Well, wait. Before we go, I want to do a quick summary. Exodus is full of great stories. In these stories, God leads and is involved in all of these stories. Now, this particular point of this lesson is about war, death, and hatred. It is the hatred for these people, the Amalekites, that God wanted to memorialize in this story. But perhaps there is a hint of something else. Consider the symbol of the lifted arms. Held them up, held them out, but perhaps imagine the arms are not up or out, but to the side, forming a cross. And this sign, from what we know of the New Testament, stands for love and forgiveness. Be safe. Thank you again for coming. Worship service begins at 10:50.